Hello, my name is Ashley Sue. I'm a PhD candidate at Tufts University, and today I will be presenting work in collaboration with Novartis on communicating performance of regression models using visualization and pharmacovigilance. This work is motivated by the increasing use of statistical regression methods by pharmaceutical companies in order to improve the quality of their pharmacovigilance. For example, sophisticated regression models can improve the detection and prediction of adverse events in clinical trials. However, the use of these statistical methods also changes the risk profile of downstream tasks due to potential noise or bias in a model's predictions. This risk profile needs to be clearly understood and communicated to a diverse set of stakeholders and subject matter experts in a highly regulated environment. Data scientists are often responsible for the communication of a model's risks, outputs, and performance. However, these presentations and discussions can be overwhelming to an audience, especially those without direct data science or machine learning expertise. Often, aggregated performance metrics are used to convey a model's performance, but these metrics alone fail to tell the whole story. As a result, stakeholders and subject matter experts struggle to feel confident when deciding whether or not to use a model. And in some scenarios, these models are never deployed in practice, resulting in a failure for pharmacovigilance groups to capitalize on the predictive power of modern machine learning and AI techniques. This leads us to question, how can a diverse set of stakeholders and subject matter experts assess a model's risk profile in a highly regulated space, such as clinical safety? In this workshop paper, we offer the following 3 contributions to address this. First, we conduct an interview study with data scientists and subject matter experts within a pharmaceutical organization to identify challenges in communicating regression models. From our interviews, we distill a set of guidelines for data scientists who must communicate a regression model's performance to SMEs. Finally, we present a pharmacovigilance use case to demonstrate our guidelines in practice with supporting visualizations. Before conducting our interview study, we performed a survey on the literature to better understand how predictive models are used and communicated for pharmacovigilance. Predictive models are used to address a wide range of issues in pharmacovigilance, for example, identifying quality assurance issues for risk assessment or detecting the underreporting of AEs in clinical trials. However, empirical studies have shown that these methods are rarely deployed in practice at healthcare and pharmaceutical organizations. It's suggested that this is partially due to the failure to communicate the utility of these models outside of standard performance metrics. Human factors and visualization research has been done to improve the communication and interpretability of predictive models. However, many post solutions are typically complex and often require training if the end user is not already a machine learning expert. Our work addresses a need for higher level solutions to facilitate communication between data scientists and subject matter experts, with the goal of bridging communication on the small scope of regression models. Now, I'll briefly describe our interview study, protocol, design, and our results. In total, we interviewed 12 participants. Of those 12, 6 were data scientists and 6 were subject matter experts. When recruiting SMEs, we specifically targeted those without direct expertise in statistics or data science. However, all of the SMEs we interviewed had worked with or seen a regression model in their work previously. For data scientists, we targeted those who have developed or assessed regression models at some point in their daily work, and participants spent roughly 45 minutes discussing how they interpret, assess, and communicate regression model performance in their workplace. For each of our interviews, participants were shown the same PowerPoint slide deck regardless of their role within the organization. During the interview, we discussed 3 high-level topics. First, we asked participants what they would need to know about a regression model in order to recommend its use. Next, we asked them how they've assessed and communicated a regression model's performance at work previously. Finally, we asked participants how the communication of regression models could be improved between data scientists and subject matter experts. A preliminary analysis of our interviews revealed several high-level takeaways. We found that before recommending a regression model's use, data scientists strongly value performance metrics, how those metrics were derived, the distribution and correlation of features, and overall data quality. On the other hand, SMEs exhaustively questioned the model's limitations and when or why it might fail. This is especially critical to SMEs, perhaps unsurprisingly, when a model is connected to patient safety. When assessing a model's performance, data scientists and subject matter experts agreed that charts, graphs, computational notebooks, and interfaces have been extremely useful for collaborative assessment and debugging of models. From our interviews, SMEs overwhelmingly requested the ability to see how certain inputs or features affect the output and performance of a model. For example, the what-if tool for black box models. When asked how communication can be improved between data scientists and SMEs, data scientists recommended that technical details should be prepared in advance for a presentation to SMEs. Data scientists also told us they have no problem explaining these details during the actual presentations. However, SMEs confided in us that they, along with other audience members, may not always be comfortable asking questions during data science presentations. This can be due to the speed of a presentation or due to a topic seeming obvious to others but not to themselves. To highlight this, I'll read a quote from one of our interview participants. She says, "Data scientists show a regression curve and it's so normal for them. They don't always realize that people don't understand some of the visuals for the models and what they really mean. And I think the end user a good chunk of the time would be too embarrassed to say, I don't get what you're talking about." This suggests that there's a mismatch in the interpretation of the conversation between data scientists and SMEs, where visualization might better act as a bridge. It also suggests that common regression visualizations may not be as recognizable or interpretable to SMEs as data scientists perceive. From the analysis of our interviews, we derive a set of guidelines for communicating the performance of a regression model to SMEs. In total, we suggest 8 guidelines and group them by the communication challenges they address from our interview study. The first 2 guidelines address a lack of context and comfort identified by SMEs. One SME suggested to us that you have to make the end user feel comfortable both in the data scientist language and also that if they don't understand something, they can easily ask, "What is this?" Therefore, we suggest that when articulating results, start slow and then offer to speed up. Additionally, tie in use cases for the model by illustrating real-life, objective-driven examples. The next 3 guidelines relate to the choice of visualization style when communicating and presenting regression model performance to SMEs. One data scientist told us, "Some people don't have experience with visualization outside of BBC infographics. I do realize it can be hard for me to remove my data scientist hat and put myself into the role of somebody who's not looking at a log plot every day." Therefore, we suggest providing context for performance by annotating plots with stories. For any chart that communicates a model's performance, provide a range of comparisons, whether to a baseline model or to an optimal model. Finally, visually explain the significance of global metrics. I'll provide a few examples of this shortly. The last 3 guidelines address concerns by both data scientists and SMEs in understanding the caveats, edge cases, outliers, and limitations of a model. One SME told us, "If data scientists said, here's where we think you'll have the most problems running the model, and here's why we think that's happening," that kind of upfront and transparent communication about why we should expect those issues is a very big way for us to build confidence in the model. Therefore, we suggest pointing to outliers in the model's performance with either known or at least plausible explanations. Be descriptive about the data used for training and testing a model, and provide examples whenever possible. Finally, explicitly demonstrate the error, limitations, and weaknesses of the model, not just the strengths. Many of our interview participants told us they were able to debug and improve a model once those errors were communicated and understood. Finally, I'll briefly cover a use case on modeling adverse events in clinical trials in order to demonstrate how our guidelines for communicating regression model performance can be used in practice. For our use case, we trained 3 models and 2 baselines to predict the number of adverse events per enrolled person in a clinical trial. We use a publicly available trial safety database and a write-up of our modeling process can be found in the appendix of our workshop paper. The purpose of this use case is to provide example visualizations that can explain the performance of our models to SMEs given our proposed guidelines. I'll walk through 3 examples that are also provided in the text of our paper. To add context and comfort to presentations, we suggest first explaining the model and what it does. Walking through an example of how a model works or how it works compared to other models or current practices can better tie a model to the use case at hand. We also suggest providing a description of all the data used for training and testing. This can help to collaboratively disambiguate and better understand the data, in addition to giving context to the modeling process as a whole. To illustrate how annotated visualizations can be used to explain global metrics, we suggest a bar chart showing the residuals between predicted and actual sorted by the size of the residual to help show how mean absolute error is apportioned globally based on the shape of the plot. Explanatory annotations can show the mean absolute error, and comparing to other models will help ground context around the current model's performance. Finally, to illustrate potential weaknesses and limitations, we suggest focusing on where the model might have the greatest error. For example, SMEs want to know if there are segments of the data that the model has high error on. Therefore, we recommend looking at the most important features of the model and using a heat map to show which categories have high error, as seen on the right here. The remaining visualizations for all of the models we trained can be found in our paper. I'll conclude here by briefly restating the contributions of our workshop paper. We present an interview study with data scientists and SMEs within a pharmaceutical organization to better understand how communication of regression models can be improved. From our interviews, we distill a set of guidelines for communicating regression model performance to SMEs. Finally, we provide a pharmacovigilance use case modeling adverse events in clinical trials to broadly demonstrate the use of our guidelines. I'd like to thank all of my co-authors on this project: Gabriel Appleby, another visual analytics PhD candidate at Tufts University. He was hugely responsible for developing all of the models used in our paper. Eric W. Anderson, Luca Finelli, and Dylan Cashman, all from the Data Science and AI division at Novartis. They facilitated this research project, and I'm extremely grateful for their mentorship. I'm now happy to answer any questions live during the Q&A. Thanks so much, everybody, for attending my virtual talk today, and thank you to the workshop organizers for giving us the opportunity to present our work. Thanks.